It was a quiet night in the countryside. The sky was dark and full of stars. Ethan, a young man in his late 20s, was walking home after work. He liked the silence of the night, the cool air, and the calm sound of crickets. But this night was not like the others. As he crossed the small dirt road near the forest, a strange light appeared above the trees. At first he thought it was a plane, but the light moved too fast. It twisted, flashed, and then shot down into the forest. A loud crash followed, shaking the ground under his feet. Birds screamed and flew into the sky, and the animals in the forest grew restless. Ethan froze, his heart beating fast. He wanted to run back home, but his curiosity was stronger. Something inside told him he needed to see what had fallen. So he followed the glow deep into the forest. The smell of burned earth filled the air, and smoke rose between the trees. When he reached the crash site, he could not believe his eyes. In the middle of a broken clearing was a small pod, silver and glowing. It looked like no plane or machine he had ever seen. Its surface was smooth, with strange marks glowing faint blue. The door of the pod was half open, and inside something moved. Ethan's hands shook as he pulled the door open, and then he saw her, a little girl no older than 7, with pale skin that seemed to shimmer. Her large eyes glowed faintly in the dark, and her hair was thin and silver. She looked weak, frightened, and very different from any human child. For a moment, Ethan could not breathe. The girl looked at him, her lips trembling. She whispered a sound he did not understand, a soft and broken word. Then she collapsed into his arms. Ethan felt fear, but also something else, pity, and a strange need to protect her. He carried her away from the pod, looking around nervously. What if someone else saw this? What if the government came? He had seen enough movies to know what could happen, so he decided to take her home. He wrapped her in his jacket and hurried back through the forest. When he reached his small house, he laid her on the couch. The girl breathed softly, her chest rising and falling with difficulty. Ethan fetched water and placed it near her. She blinked slowly, then whispered in broken English, "Safe, please." Ethan's heart sank. She could speak, even if only a little. He nodded and said, "You are safe here," though he was not sure if it was true. The girl closed her eyes and rested. Outside, the night was strangely quiet, as if the forest itself was watching. Later that night, as Ethan sat near her, the radio suddenly came alive. Static filled the room, followed by strange signals. The TV flickered, though it was unplugged. The girl stirred, opening her glowing eyes. She whispered again, her voice trembling, "They will come." Ethan shivered. He wanted to ask who they were, but she had already fallen back asleep. The house felt colder than before, and the silence pressed against his ears. Ethan stared out the window, wondering if something in the sky was already watching him. Hours passed, but he could not sleep. Every sound outside made him jump. The wind in the trees, the creak of the house, even the dog barking far away. His mind replayed the crash, the pod, the glowing marks, and the girl's strange eyes. He asked himself again and again, what had he brought into his home? By morning, Ethan decided to keep her hidden. He told himself it was the right thing. She was small, fragile, and clearly afraid. If anyone else found her, they would take her away. And deep inside, Ethan knew she trusted him, but the words she had spoken echoed in his head. They will come. Who were they? Were they her people? Were they friends or hunters? The thought made him uneasy. That day he noticed strange things in the house. The lights flickered without reason. The water in his glass shook, as if from some unseen vibration. Even the dog outside whined and scratched at the door, refusing to stay in the yard. Ethan tried to ignore it, but the truth was clear. Something had changed since the girl arrived, and the feeling of being watched grew stronger. At night, when the forest grew dark again, Ethan stood at the window. He saw a flash of light far in the distance, high in the sky. It was brief, but enough to make his skin crawl. He whispered to himself, "They are looking for her." The girl stirred again in her sleep, as if she heard him. Her glowing eyes opened for a moment and she looked at him with fear and sadness. Then she whispered one more word before closing her eyes again. Soon. Ethan sat in silence. He felt the weight of a secret he could not share, and deep inside, he knew his life would never be the same again. The morning sun rose over the small countryside town, but inside Ethan's house, the air was heavy with secrets. The little alien girl lay quietly on the couch, her silver hair shining faintly in the light. Ethan watched her, still unsure if this was real or some strange dream. But every sound, every flicker of her glowing eyes reminded him this was no dream. He prepared some food for himself, bread and eggs, but when he offered it to her, she shook her head. Her small hands touched the sunlight streaming through the window, and, for a moment, her pale skin glowed brighter. Ethan realized she was feeding on the light itself. It was beautiful and strange, and it made him more curious. The girl tried to speak, but her English was broken. Light. Good. Safe, she whispered. Ethan nodded, though he did not fully understand. He asked her name, but she only shook her head, as if she could not say it. So he decided to call her Luma, because of the way she glowed like a small light. The first day passed slowly. Ethan kept the curtains closed, not wanting the neighbors to see anything unusual. He tried to act normal, but he could feel the house changing. The air was warmer, the walls hummed with a faint vibration, and his phone began to show strange static. At night, the dog barked again and again, staring at the woods with its tail tucked low. By the second day, Luma had learned a few more words. She pointed to herself and said softly, "Lost, alone, hiding." Her large eyes filled with tears, and Ethan felt his chest tighten. He wanted to protect her, but he also feared what kind of danger she carried with her. Later that evening, Ethan turned on the TV, but instead of normal channels, the screen showed strange patterns. Symbols like circles and lines spun across the screen before it shut off completely. Luma pressed her small hand against the black screen, whispering, "Signal. Calling." Ethan swallowed hard, understanding one thing. Someone, somewhere, was looking for her. That night, the house grew cold. Ethan woke up to see Luma standing near the window, her eyes glowing brighter than before. She was whispering, to herself in a language he could not understand. When he called her name, she turned quickly, fear in her eyes. "Not safe," she said, shaking her head. "They, come." Ethan tried to ask more, but she only repeated the same words. Her little body trembled, and he knew she was terrified. He sat with her until she finally fell asleep, though her breathing was shallow and uneasy. Outside, the wind carried, a low humming sound as if something far above the clouds was watching. On the third morning, the tension in the house was stronger than ever. Every corner seemed alive with hidden energy. Lights flickered, shadows moved where they should not, and Ethan felt he was no longer alone even in his own home. When he went outside to fetch water, he noticed marks in the dirt road. Strange circles, as if burned into the ground. They had not been there the day before. Ethan's neighbor, Mr. Harris, waved at him from across the field. "Did you hear those noises last night?" the old man asked. Ethan forced a smile and shook his head. "Just the wind," he lied, but he knew it was not the wind. He quickly returned inside, his stomach tight with worry. Luma sat at the table, her glowing eyes fixed on him. She pointed. At the window, her voice soft but clear. "Hunters," she whispered. "They, near." The word sent a chill through Ethan's body. Hunters. Not rescuers, not family, but hunters. That night was the worst of all. The forest outside was alive with strange noises. Ethan heard crackling sounds like electricity in the air, and faint echoes of voices that were not human. The dog howled nonstop until its voice broke. Ethan stayed awake, his heart racing, a baseball bat in his hand. Though he knew it would be useless against whatever was out there, Luma clung to him, whispering over and over, "Hide, hide, hide." He pulled the curtains tighter, locked the doors, and tried to calm her down. But as midnight passed, something extraordinary happened. The house lights went out completely. plunging them into darkness. Only Luma's faint glow lit the room, casting shadows on the walls. Then the radio turned on by itself, filling the room with static. A deep voice came through, speaking in a language Ethan had never heard. Luma's eyes widened with fear and she covered her ears. "Hunters!" she cried. "They call. They close." Ethan grabbed her hand and pulled her close. He had no plan, no idea what to do. But he knew one thing. He could not let her go. The voice on the radio grew louder, then cut off sharply. The silence that followed was worse than the sound itself. Ethan looked out the window and far in the distance, deep in the forest. He saw it. Two tall shadows glowing faintly against the dark. They were moving slowly, searching, their eyes like burning stars. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He whispered to himself, "It's starting." And Luma, clutching his arm tightly, whispered the same word as before. Soon. The next morning came, but Ethan felt no comfort. His eyes were heavy, his mind restless, and his heart full of questions. The little alien girl, Luma, sat quietly at the table, her glowing eyes fixed on him. She looked more fragile than before, yet somehow stronger in her spirit. Ethan wanted answers. He needed to understand. Why had she come here? Who was chasing her? And what danger was coming closer each day? He poured water into a glass and placed it in front of her. Luma touched the glass but did not drink. Instead, she whispered, "Truth. You must know." Ethan leaned forward, his voice low. "Tell me," he said. "What are you running from?" Luma lowered her head, her silver hair falling across her face. She spoke slowly, her broken English forcing her to choose simple words. "Hunters," she whispered. "They take children, like me." Ethan's stomach twisted. She placed her small hand over her chest, her eyes glowing brighter. "I carry light," she said. "Inside, special, not safe." Ethan frowned, trying to understand. "Special? Why not safe?" Luma's lip trembled, her voice thin. "They want light, power, weapon." Ethan sat back, chills running down his arms. This little girl was not just an alien child. She carried something powerful inside her, something others wanted badly enough to cross the stars for. His mind raced with questions, but fear kept him silent. That day, the signs grew stronger. In the woods, strange marks appeared on trees, circles burned into the bark. The ground shook faintly, though no storm or truck was near. Ethan's phone glowed with static symbols before turning off completely. Everywhere he looked, he felt like unseen eyes were watching. When night came, Ethan sat with Luma by the dim glow of a lantern. He tried to keep his voice calm, though his chest was heavy with dread. "Why me?" he asked softly. "Why did you come to me?" Luma looked at him with wide, sad eyes. "You, heart strong," she said. "I feel safe. With you." Her words struck him harder than he expected. In that moment, Ethan realized she trusted him fully. A child from another world, carrying something powerful and dangerous, had chosen him as her protector. It filled him with pride but also fear. Because if he failed, not only she but maybe even Earth itself could suffer. As midnight approached, strange noises echoed outside again. This time not just humming, but voices low and sharp like hunters calling to each other in the dark. Ethan held the bat tighter in his hands. Though deep inside he knew it was useless. The girl pressed her hands over her ears, whispering, "Too close, too close." Then, without warning, the lights in the house flared bright. Every bulb burned white before exploding into glass and sparks. The radio switched on by itself, the deep static voice returning. Ethan's heart pounded as he heard the strange alien words, each one heavy and commanding. Luma shook violently, tears streaming down her glowing cheeks. "Hunters. They call for me," she cried. Ethan grabbed her shoulders, his own voice rising. "No, you're safe here. I won't let them take you." But even as he spoke, the floor trembled beneath his feet. Shadows moved past the windows, tall figures gliding silently across the yard. For a moment, Ethan thought it was a dream, but the sound of glass breaking in the kitchen told him otherwise. He pulled Luma behind him, his breath sharp and quick. A shadow moved closer, stretching long and strange against the wall. Ethan held his bat up, his knuckles white. But then, as quickly as it came, the shadow slid back into the night. The house grew silent again, though the air still buzzed with unseen energy. Luma's voice was faint, but steady. "They test you," she whispered. "They see if you protect me." Ethan's heart thundered in his chest. So this was not only a hunt, but also a test, a cruel game to break his will. He clenched his teeth and whispered back, "I won't fail." The rest of the night passed slowly, every second heavy with fear. Ethan sat awake, keeping Luma close, his eyes fixed on the windows. The forest outside no longer felt alive with nature, but alive with hunters waiting, and every whisper of wind sounded like footsteps coming closer. By dawn, the house looked broken, the lights shattered, the furniture moved, and the air heavy with static energy. Luma sat quietly, her small hands folded, her eyes sad but full of strange wisdom. She looked at Ethan and said, 3 days. Then, they come? Ethan felt the weight of her words. 3 days. He had only that much time. Time before the hunters arrived fully. Time before the truth of this strange war reached his door. And deep inside, Ethan knew he could not run. He was already part of it. Outside, the forest was silent, but silence no longer meant peace. It meant waiting. It meant danger. And as Ethan looked at Luma, fragile yet glowing like a small star, he swore to himself one thing: he would protect her, no matter what came. The third night was colder than the others. The air outside carried a sharp stillness, as if even the forest was holding its breath. Ethan sat by the window, his eyes heavy from lack of sleep, but his grip tight on the bat resting against his knee. Luma was curled up on the couch, her silver hair glowing faintly in the dark, her eyes half closed, but not asleep. Neither of them could rest anymore, not with the hunters drawing closer. Hours passed in silence, broken only by the occasional creak of the old house. Ethan's mind ran in circles. What would happen in 3 days? Would the hunters come in force? Would the world see them? Or would they take everything from him before anyone even knew? Every thought was a weight pressing harder against his chest. Then, just as the clock struck midnight, a sound came. A knock at the door, slow and heavy. Echoing through the house like a heartbeat, Ethan froze, his breath caught in his throat. No one knocked at his door at this hour, not in this quiet countryside. The sound came again, firmer this time, 3 sharp knocks that rattled the wood. Luma's eyes snapped open, glowing brighter than ever before. Her small hands clutched Ethan's arm, her voice trembling. "They come," she whispered. "They hear." Ethan swallowed hard. Forcing himself to stand, he motioned for her to stay quiet, then stepped slowly toward the door, each step heavy with dread. The knocking stopped, replaced by silence. Ethan's hand hovered over the lock, sweat dripping down his brow. Part of him wanted to run, part of him wanted to pretend he wasn't home, but something deeper told him there was no escape. They knew he was there. They knew she was inside. With a shaky breath, Ethan unlocked the door and pulled it open. What he saw made his blood run cold. Standing on the porch were 2 tall figures, women, but not human. Their skin shimmered faintly, their eyes glowed like silver fire, and their long hair floated as if touched by invisible wind. Each wore dark armor that glowed faintly at the seams, and at their sides hung strange weapons. Unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. For a moment no one spoke. The taller of the 2 tilted her head, her piercing eyes scanning him. Then she spoke, her voice smooth but powerful. "We seek the child," she said, her words clear, though touched by an accent not of earth. Ethan's throat tightened, his body trembling. Behind him, Luma's frightened whisper carried through the room. No, not safe." The women's glowing eyes shifted, sensing her presence inside. The second woman stepped forward, her tone sharper. "Human," she said. "The child does not belong with you. Give her to us." Ethan gripped the door tighter, his heart pounding in his chest. Every instinct told him to step aside, to let them take her. But when he glanced back at Luma, her small body shaking, her wide eyes begging him not to, something inside him snapped. He turned back to the women, his voice low but steady. "She's safe here. She stays with me." The taller woman studied him, her silver eyes narrowing. "You protect her, even though you do not understand who she is," she said, her tone almost curious. "She is dangerous to you, to your kind. Do you not fear what may follow?" Ethan clenched his jaw, his hands shaking but his voice firm. "I fear you more," he said, "and I won't let you take her." A tense silence followed, the air between them thick with unseen power. The two alien women exchanged a glance, their expressions unreadable. Then the taller one stepped back slightly, her voice lower. "You show courage," she said. "Strange for your kind." Her words were neither praise nor insult, but something in between. The second woman, less patient, raised her hand, and a faint energy sparked around her palm. Ethan's eyes widened, the bat in his hand suddenly feeling useless. Luma cried out, "No!" her small voice sharp with fear. The taller woman lowered her companion's hand, shaking her head. "Not yet," she said, her glowing eyes fixed on Ethan. Ethan felt his knees weaken, but he stood his ground. He could hear his heartbeat pounding in his ears. The taller woman leaned closer, her face only inches away, her eyes piercing through him. "You cannot protect her forever," she whispered. 3 days, human, then the choice will be made." With that, both women turned, their bodies glowing faintly as they stepped back into the night. The air shimmered around them, and in a blink they were gone, vanishing into the darkness as if they had never been there at all. The silence that followed was crushing. Ethan slammed the door shut, his body shaking, his mind racing with fear and confusion. He turned to Luma, who sat frozen on the couch, her glowing eyes filled with tears. "They not save me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "They take me. Use me." Ethan knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder, his voice firm though his heart was heavy. "Then they'll have to go through me first," he said. Luma looked at him with a mix of fear and hope, her small hand reaching for his. Outside, the night returned to silence, but Ethan knew the peace would not last. The visitors had come, and now the real battle had begun. The night after, the visitors came. Ethan could not close his eyes. Sleep no longer lived in his house. Only fear and heavy silence. Every shadow seemed alive. Every sound outside felt like a warning. The two alien women were gone, but their presence lingered like a storm waiting to return. Luma sat on the couch, her small hands gripping the blanket. Her silver eyes shimmered in the dark, filled with sadness and fear. She looked at Ethan as if searching for answers, but Ethan had none. All he had was the weight of her trust, pressing heavy against his heart. The words of the taller alien echoed in his mind. "You cannot protect her forever. 3 days, then the choice will be made." A choice. The word burned into him like fire. Did that mean they would give him one last chance? Or did it mean they would return to take her by force? When dawn came, Ethan walked to the kitchen and stared out the window. The forest looked calm, but he knew better. Something was out there, watching, waiting. He poured water into a glass with trembling hands. Behind him, Luma's soft voice broke the silence. "You afraid?" she whispered. Ethan turned and tried to smile, but it was weak. "Yeah," he admitted, "but I'm not afraid of you." Her eyes brightened for a moment, as if those words gave her strength. "Still," she whispered, "danger grows, more near." Ethan sat down across from her, his voice low but firm. "Tell me the truth, Luma," he said. "Why do they want you? Why are you so important to them?" The girl lowered her head, her silver hair falling like a curtain. She pressed her small hand over her chest where her heart beat faintly. Inside, a glow pulsed softly beneath her skin. "My light," she whispered. "It is Seed. Ethan frowned, not understanding. Seed, he repeated. Seed of what? Her lips trembled, her eyes wet with tears. World, she said. I carry. Seed of new world. Power. Life. The weight of her words hit him like a storm. Inside her was something far greater than he had imagined. Not just energy, not just knowledge, but the potential to create life itself. And the hunters, those alien women, wanted to take it, not to protect it, but to use it, to bend it, maybe even to destroy others with it. Ethan's chest tightened, his mind screaming. He was just one man, an ordinary human. How could he stand against beings who crossed galaxies? But when he looked at Luma, fragile, small, yet carrying something so powerful, he knew the answer. He could not give her up. Not to them. Not to anyone. The day passed slowly, each hour heavier than the last. The forest grew restless. Strange sounds echoing through the trees. Animals avoided his house. Birds no longer sang nearby. The dog from down the road barked wildly all afternoon until its owner dragged it inside. Nature itself seemed to sense what was coming. That evening, Ethan sat with Luma by the fire. The glow of the flames danced across her silver eyes. Ethan, she said softly, her broken words carrying deep meaning. You? Choose soon. He nodded, his jaw tight. Yeah, I know. But deep inside, the fear gnawed at him. What if he chose wrong? What if keeping her put the whole world at risk? What if handing her over saved lives but broke hers? The questions circled like vultures, never letting him rest. As the night deepened, the knock returned. 3 sharp strikes on the door, steady and slow. Ethan's heart jumped, his hands trembling as he stood. He already knew who it was. When he opened the door, the 2 alien women stood there again, glowing in the darkness. The taller one spoke, calmly, her silver eyes fixed on him. Human, she said. You have been given time. Now we ask again. Give us the child. Ethan's body stiffened, his throat dry. He looked back at Luma, who was hiding behind the couch, her eyes wide with fear. The second woman stepped forward, her voice sharper. She is not yours to keep. Her power is beyond you. Give her or suffer. Ethan's grip tightened on the door. His heart raced, his mind screamed, but his voice came out steady. She stays with me, he said. The second woman hissed, her silver eyes glowing brighter, energy sparking around her hand, but the taller one raised her arm, stopping her. You are a strange one, the taller woman said, her voice calm but cold. You are given a choice and you choose danger. Do you think your courage will save you? Ethan swallowed hard. His eyes locked on hers. No, he said, but maybe it will save her. The taller woman tilted her head, her expression unreadable. For a moment, silence stretched like an endless rope between them. Then she spoke, her words soft but heavy. 3 nights more, human, after that. No choice. With that, they turned and vanished into the night, their bodies dissolving into silver light. Ethan shut the door with shaking hands, his chest burning with fear and anger. He turned to Luma, who was crying softly, her voice breaking. You risk for me, she whispered. Why? Ethan knelt beside her, his eyes firm, his voice low. Because you're not just light or seed or power, he said. You're a child, and no one should face this alone. Luma's tears glowed in the dim firelight, and for the first time since he found her, she smiled faintly. Outside, the night was silent once more, but Ethan knew silence meant only one thing. The storm was closer, and soon he would have no choice left to make at all. The days that followed felt like a countdown. Every hour was heavier than the one before. Ethan tried to keep calm, but his nerves were raw. Luma stayed close to him, quiet and fearful, her silver glow dimming more. Each day the words of the alien women haunted him. 3 nights more, and those nights were almost over. The second evening after their visit, strange things began to happen in the house. The mirrors trembled though no one touched them. The fire in the fireplace burned blue instead of orange. The walls hummed with a low vibration, as if the whole house was caught in an invisible storm. Ethan tried to stay strong, but he could feel the pressure growing. That night he found Luma awake, standing near the window again. Her glowing eyes fixed on the dark forest, her small body shaking. Close, she whispered. Hunter's call. Louder. Ethan joined her, staring into the trees. But he saw only shadows. Still, the silence of the forest felt wrong, too heavy, too waiting. On the third night, the final night, the air turned electric. The sky above the forest glowed faintly, as if lightning was trapped inside the clouds. Ethan locked the doors, shut the curtains, and kept the bat close, but deep inside he knew none of it would matter. They were coming, not to ask, not to threaten, but to take. Luma sat near the fire, her small hands glowing faintly. She looked, weaker than ever, her voice soft and fading. Ethan, she whispered, if they take me, I vanish. His chest tightened, anger flaring in his veins. No one's taking you, he said firmly. Not while I'm here. Then, without warning, the house shook. Every light burst into sparks, the air filled with a sharp humming sound. Ethan grabbed Luma and pulled her close, his heart pounding. The front door blew open, not with wind, but with force. And there they were, stepping inside like shadows wrapped in light. The two alien women, their silver eyes glowed brighter than before, their armor humming with strange energy. The taller one stepped forward, her voice calm but filled with power. Human, she said, it is time. Give her to us. Ethan stood in front of Luma, his hands shaking but his body blocking the way. No, he said, his voice steady, though his heart raced. The second, woman sneered, energy crackling at her fingertips. You defy us still, she said sharply. You are weak, you are nothing, yet you stand. Ethan tightened his grip on the bat, even though it felt like holding a twig against a storm. Maybe I am nothing, he said, but she trusts me and I won't let her down. Luma clutched his arm, her glowing eyes wide. The taller woman tilted her head, studying him, her expression unreadable. You fight for her, she said slowly. Even without knowing. The cost? Ethan took a step closer, his voice rising. I don't need to know the cost, I just know she's a child and she deserves to live free. The taller woman paused, but the second one raised her hand. Energy surged in her palm, bright and crackling like lightning. She threw it forward, striking the floor with a blinding flash. The ground shook, wood splintered, and the air filled with burning heat. Ethan shielded Luma, his body trembling but still standing. The taller woman raised, her hand stopping her companion again. Enough, she said, her voice sharp. This human has made his choice. She stepped closer, her silver eyes locking onto Ethan's. You think your courage is strength, but courage breaks, human, she said coldly. Will you still stand when we show you the truth? Ethan's heart pounded, but he forced himself to meet her gaze. I'll stand until I fall, he said, his voice rough but steady. For the first time, the taller woman's eyes flickered, as if something about his words unsettled her. But the second woman hissed, raising her weapon once more. We should end him now, she spat. He is in the way. Before she could strike, Luma stepped forward, her small body glowing brighter. Stop, she cried, her voice louder than ever before. The glow inside her chest spread, filling the room with soft silver light. The alien women froze, their eyes narrowing, their weapons lowered. For the first time, Ethan saw something new in their faces. Hesitation, the taller woman whispered almost to herself. The seed. It awakens. Ethan pulled Luma back gently, but the glow continued to fill the room. The women stepped closer, their silver eyes locked on the child. Ethan raised the bat again, though he knew it meant nothing against such power. The taller woman turned to him, her voice softer. You cannot keep her, she said. The light inside her grows, and soon it will consume you both. Ethan shook his head, his voice hard. Then I'll burn with her, but I won't give her up. Luma clung to him, her small hand gripping tightly. The house trembled once more, the walls creaking under unseen pressure. The confrontation held like a storm on the edge of breaking. Ethan's courage, the women's power, and Luma's glowing light all clashing in the same room. And in that moment, Ethan realized something. They were not just testing him anymore. This was the beginning of a war. The room shook like thunder trapped inside the walls. Luma's silver glow filled every corner, chasing away the shadows. Ethan stood in front of her, his body trembling, but his spirit refusing to break. The two alien women faced him, their silver eyes locked on the child, their weapons humming with hidden power. The taller one spoke first, her voice low and sharp. "You cannot protect her, human. The light she carries is not yours to guard." Ethan's jaw tightened, sweat running down his face. "She chose me," he said, his voice rough but steady. "And I'll protect her no matter what it takes." The second woman hissed, her body tense. "You are weak," she spat. "You stand with wood in your hand against fire and storm." Ethan gripped the bat tighter, his knuckles white. "Maybe I am weak," he said, "but weakness doesn't mean I'll run, not when she needs me." Luma stepped forward, her little hand clutching Ethan's arm. Her glow grew brighter, her eyes wide with both fear and hope. The taller woman studied them for a long moment, her silver eyes narrowing. "There is something strange in you," she said slowly. "Humans should bow, yet you stand, even when defeat is certain." Ethan forced himself to breathe, his voice rising with each word. "You come here with power, with weapons, with fear," he said. "But I have something stronger. I have a choice, and I choose her." The words echoed in the room, simple but heavy. For the first time, the women hesitated, their glowing eyes flickering. The second one snarled, raising her weapon, energy crackling like lightning. "You waste words," she snapped. "We take the child now." But before she could strike, Luma's glow burst brighter than ever. A wave of silver light spread through the room, knocking dust from the ceiling. The weapon in her hand sparked and died, falling silent. Both women stepped back in shock. "The seed, it awakens," the taller whispered, her voice shaken. Ethan held Luma close, shielding her as the glow grew softer again. Her small voice trembled, but carried strength. "They know take me," she said. "I stay. Safe." The taller woman looked at Ethan once more. "You are only human," she said, her tone neither kind nor cruel. "Yet you defy us. You hold against fear." Ethan met her gaze without flinching. "Because she matters," he said. "Because sometimes being human is enough." Silence filled the room, broken only by the faint hum of the house. The second woman glared, her eyes still burning with anger. But the taller one raised her hand, stopping her again. "This is not the end," she said. "But tonight we leave her with you." Ethan's heart pounded, confusion mixing with relief. "Why?" he demanded. "Why walk away now?" The taller woman's silver eyes gleamed, unreadable. "Because courage is rare," she said. "And perhaps you are worthy." With that, the two women stepped back, their bodies glowing with silver light. The air shimmered around them, and in a blink, they were gone. The silence left behind felt heavy, but also strangely peaceful. Ethan lowered the bat, his arms shaking, his breath ragged. Beside him, Luma leaned against his side, whispering softly, "Safe. With you." He looked down at her, the child who carried the seed of worlds. She was no longer just an alien girl he had found in the forest. She was hope. She was danger. She was everything the universe seemed to fight over. And somehow, she had chosen him, an ordinary man, to protect her. As the fire crackled weakly in the hearth, Ethan realized the truth. This was not an ending. This was only the beginning. The women would return, others might come. But tonight had proven one thing. Humanity was not weak. Even in the face of endless power, courage could stand. Ethan sat with Luma in the quiet of the night, his arm around her small shoulders. She rested her glowing head against him, her breathing soft. He stared at the window, the stars beyond shining cold and distant. But for the first time, he did not feel small beneath them. He felt ready. The hunters had seen his strength. They had seen that humanity was not just flesh and fear. It was loyalty. It was courage. It was the will to fight for what was right. And Ethan knew deep inside that was something no weapon could take away. Outside, the forest returned to silence. The strange hum faded, the air calmed, and the night carried only the sound of crickets again. But Ethan knew the peace would not last. Someday soon they would return, maybe stronger, maybe angrier. Yet he also knew he would be waiting. For now, the little girl was safe. For now, his choice had held. And in that moment, he understood the truth. Sometimes, it was not alien, power or ancient light that changed the course of worlds. Sometimes it was the simple, stubborn courage of a human heart.